We do know, and this is a message that I think is really important, we know that women in pregnancy are not eating enough food to nourish their bodies and babies. Baby will take everything it needs. Baby is always fine. It is the woman who tends to be left in the lurch.
Hello and welcome to Demystifying Child's Play. I'm Ruth and today I'm joined by Hannah Eriksen, who is a New Zealand registered dietitian passionate about women's reproductive health to create generations of healthy babies. No matter where you are at and you're trying to conceive, pregnancy or postpartum journey, Hannah has some great points to share with us today. She's a grateful mum of two. She's struggled with PCOS, infertility and miscarriage to grow her family. Founding Oh Goodness Nutrition has given her the privilege of supporting many women who are waiting for their dream family to be able to set themselves up for a healthy conception, pregnancy and postpartum journey. So welcome, Hannah.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So let's get comfortable. Whether you're out on a walk, catching a rare moment of quiet, or multitasking around the house, let's dive on in and explore trying to conceive, pregnancy and our postpartum journey. And before I get any further, I do want to remind you that all these notes are going to be on our blog, so don't feel like you need to take everything in. If you head to playschemas.com/blog, you'll be able to get all the notes there. So, Hannah, where would you start? What would your first thing be you'd like to share with people if they've got anywhere in that journey?
It's a time. It's a riot. There's no other time in a woman's life like this. So I think above all, we've got to have compassion for ourselves and recognize that our capacity is not what it used to be. And we might be used to ourselves functioning at quite a high level. But whether we're trying to conceive, pregnant, like growing a baby, or in the thick of it, once baby's out, running, around with our little families, things just need to shift and they'll look quite different. So I'm going to share, Ruth, a lot of information today, but it's the how-to that really can be the sticking point. And I think for a lot of women in this phase, we feel like piling more and more on because we need to do more, we know more, we're smart people, we're so used to functioning well. But we just need to recognize that even the littlest changes can make a big difference. And it is also a season that sharpens.
Yes, and that's what I love chatting to you about this, is that you are a real mum with real little kids. You've really been through the postpartum journey, but you've also really been through all that conception and preconception, all that as well. So you get it. You're in this with us, which is really good. And also how, it's not just the first time. It could be second, third, fourth time that there's struggles along the way as well. So we're just thank you for being alongside us in this journey. And thank you for sharing your knowledge today. So where would you start?
I reckon that not enough women know that how you eat prior to conceiving has a huge lifelong impact on the quality of the baby that you'll produce. Now, the 3 months prior to conception, pregnancy, and the 2 years after that are known as the first 1,000 days. And there's been a bunch of research showing how valuable this can be as the baby's DNA is first of all selected, then meets another sperm and then creates a baby, and that baby is grown. But so the quality of the baby is really set in the mum's body before the sperm and egg have even met, while you're developing and choosing which egg to release each month. And so I say it's never too early to be prepared. Of course, women, you probably know many who can get pregnant, no issues. And so it's not necessarily going to stop some women conceiving, but it will, for certain women, be the make or break in terms of when I'm saying getting ready for conception, like the types of foods that you're consuming, your lifestyle, how well you're sleeping, if you're exercising consistently, all of these things will impact the quality of the DNA that is ultimately chosen. So it's never too late to prepare, and you're not being weird or over the top if you are taking some time to think about how to nourish your body in preparation for whatever baby number this is, 1 or 5.
I was saying that just to link in. Is it anything to do with the man's side, or is it just the girls that need to be really onto it?
I feel the women carry a huge brunt of it. We do carry the baby, like we grow it, we nourish it. So it is a lot on us, but just as important, of course, the male DNA matters. And more research is showing how a baby's lifelong health is also linked to what the dad's doing. And so, yes, of course it matters. I work primarily with women and I rope in the men wherever I can. Let's say they're not as willing to change some of their habits as the ladies are. And so it's equally as important, but I think the way to get to the men is through the ladies.
Nice. Okay, so that's such a great start, knowing that it's not just from when you conceive, it's from that time beforehand that we need to kind of be thinking about our bodies, what we're doing, how we're acting, what we're consuming. So then what would number 2 be?
When your baby is growing in your belly, impacts their quality of life. So we know, and this just blows my mind, you're setting the foundation for your baby's lifelong health in the womb. So they're picking up basically the environment that they're living in. The DNA is set. So you've already done that before, okay? With the egg and the sperm, you've already set the DNA. But now that it's growing in the womb, this DNA can be manipulated. And certain genes can be turned on and off. It's a process called epigenetics. So you might have heard of that. And epigenetics is really an environmental response. So if your baby, for example, is exposed to, like a woman has undiagnosed PCOS and she doesn't realize, of course, because she's undiagnosed, then her baby, for example, will think, shoot, in these levels of high androgens, I need to protect myself. And so that baby is also going to be more at risk of something like endometriosis later in life, where there's high levels of female hormones to male. Likewise, if in a mother's womb, a baby isn't getting exposure to things like the allergens, so soy or nuts or shellfish, then we know that that baby is more likely to develop allergies on the outside because they haven't been exposed to it in the womb. We know that things like asthma and eczema are also prone to developing in the womb, again, as a result of the inflammation that a mother might be carrying without even realizing it, as a consequence of how she just goes about her day, whether it's what she eats, the environment she works in, how much stress she's carrying in her body. All of this stuff is basically teaching your baby's DNA how it should expect to see the world on the outside. And so the way that we eat and obviously how we live, again, I know I'm a broken record, but it really makes a huge difference in terms of how that baby then has, like, the trajectory of that baby's health. And you're not necessarily going to see it immediately. It could be 20, 30 years down the line when some of the stuff starts coming up. We do know, and this is a message that I think is really important, we know that women in pregnancy are not eating enough food to nourish their bodies and babies. Baby will take everything it needs. Baby is always fine. It is the woman who tends to be left in the lurch. And so, because the blood flow goes to the baby first before it goes to the mother. So baby's getting all of the nutrients, and anything left over the mum gets. And so there are requirements based in the literature in terms of the research that we know women require to have really healthy babies. And in New Zealand, we've done studies looking at a population nationwide, and it was seen that 97% of these women were not eating the requirements that are needed for this baseline wellness. And similar studies have been done in Australia as well, where they found 0% of mothers were doing this, although 2/3 of those studied thought they were. So it's quite common to think, yeah, I'm eating fine. I'm not eating for 2, but I'm eating okay. My diet's pretty healthy, and it probably is healthy. It's just perhaps a bit shy of what you need for pregnancy.
That's all really interesting, just thinking about how much of an impact just food and lifestyle impacts our baby when they're born, but then for their life afterwards. And I'd probably say along here as well is that if your baby then is born with eczema or anything like that, don't beat yourself up. It's not that you've cursed them or you've done anything. Sometimes it's just what happens. But sometimes if you're aware of it beforehand, you can work on things to help you get more nourished and also your baby as well along the way.
Absolutely. It is a risk thing. So if mum and dad both have eczema or allergies, the baby's risk is significantly higher. But there are some substantial steps that you can take to reduce it, again, specifically through the types of food that a mum eats. At the same time, if only one of you or none of you, the risk is different. So it's never a blame thing. And again, you're not going to not be able to get pregnant, or you're not going to be able, like if your teenager develops endometriosis, please parents, in several years' time, you've done your absolute best. And some of the stuff is simply environmental or is out of our control. And so that's why we just have to have grace for ourselves in these times of, we're going to do what we know with the knowledge we have. Look, in 10 or 20 years' time, the amount of research and the things that we're going to know then, we'll be like, oh my gosh, like, how did I not? Because we just know what we know now, and it will change. If I can make another point, Ruth, I think I've been talking in general terms a lot about types of, I haven't even mentioned the types of food, just food. And when I say it, and this is the funny thing about nutrition, is you're going to roll your eyes internally, I hope. and be like, duh, like this stuff, yes, we know it. And yes, I do it. And I think part of the reason women almost dismiss nutrition sometimes, whether trying to conceive or postpartum or in pregnancy, is because it's so basic. And yet when you look, and when I would analyze a client's diet in the friendliest sense, we talk about it together. And I think, well, actually knowing your goals, this is what's missing. There's always something. And some of us, we have larger gaps. So when talking about food, the things I'm specifically mentioning that make the biggest difference, you're going to laugh at me because I'm such a dietitian, is the whole grains. So not just carbohydrates, but the highest quality, highest fiber, lowest GI. I'm throwing lots of terms out there, some of which you'll know, some of which you won't. But they are really so important in conception, growing a baby, and then postpartum, because your body's main fuel is this. And pregnancy and postpartum, they're very expensive processes for your body. It costs your body a lot of energy, so you need a lot more. And women, in my observation, we've got this sort of societal subconscious belief that carbs are bad and protein's good. And so there's this swap where people are focusing on protein and not enough on the grains. And carbs, I'm very specific around whole grains being the ones that we want, because you can obviously find carbs that are quickly digested, carbs that give you energy crashes, carbs that are most delicious and easy to eat lots of, but aren't actually giving you what you need. That's the one. And then the second one is vegetables. You would have guessed that. All of the colors of the rainbow. In fact, everything of all the food that goes into our mouths, most of it should be vegetables. And I think it's difficult to do until you know how to do it, and then it becomes quite easy. But if our lunch and dinner plates aren't mostly vegetables, then we're not hitting the mark, right? So it's sort of thinking the whole grains, the vegetables, and then the third one I'll say, which is deeply important and also misunderstood and misrepresented, is the dairy. So when it comes to fertility, when it comes to pregnancy and postpartum, dairy is really important. Whether you can like drink bovine, cow, or whether you need some kind of milk alternative, the two things you're looking out for: does it have a good source of protein? Does it have a good source of calcium? If it's from a cow, it will. If it's from soy, it will. If you're looking at some of the other ones, it likely won't have quite the levels you need, so you might need to be a bit savvy about it. So those three things I think are the most important, because they're the most misunderstood and the most underrepresented. Of course, there's lots of little bits and pieces in there too around how you eat, like how do you structure a day? How do you structure a meal? What kind of supplements should I be having? All of these juicy conversations, which are really important, but also individual for each person. So at this level, when I'm talking in general terms about food during preconception, pregnancy, and postpartum, I'm really covering off a lot of those three food groups. So thank you for letting me explain that.
Just thinking there is so much in there and so many things you said. Some of them are like, yep, I know that. And then I think about my dinner plate, or probably my lunch plate, and definitely my breakfast. But like, how many vegetables am I getting in there? Because I think about dinner and getting a whole lot of veggies there, but probably not throughout my day as well as I should. And so I think, as you said, I'm all about being a good enough parent. And in that regards, it's being as good as you can be with the knowledge you've got today. And your knowledge may change tomorrow, and then you may change. With what you know today, you do with what you have. So I'm already thinking, I've already had my lunch today, but I think I will be making sure there's a good amount of veggies on my dinner plate tonight, and then going into tomorrow as well.
Brilliant. I love it.
Okay, so what's the next point you want to share with us?
When we have a baby, I feel that the pressure on a mum is immense. So if this is your first baby, never have we experienced such a shift in our identity. Like, who were we even before? If you have subsequent children, you just find you're getting less and less of the time pie. There's just so little to go around, and you're stretched and you're tired. What we underestimate as well is, and I've alluded to this already, is postpartum is probably the most expensive time for your body. You're not growing, like baby's out, but in terms of recovery, in terms of breast milk supply, in terms of helping your hair not fall out continuously, in terms of having mood with those hormone shifts as your body's getting back to normal, and dealing with the sleep deprivation, nutrition becomes even more important in this time. And again, when I'm saying nutrition, I'm talking the two food groups that increase to your pre-pregnancy requirements. So maybe you think, okay, baby's out, I don't need to eat as much. There are 2 food groups that increase once baby's out, and it is whole grains and vegetables. Dun, dun, dun. And they jump up to the point that when I'm seeing and working with my postpartum clients, I give the disclaimer, look, I know you're not actually going to be able to make it, but chances are you're going to do a really good job of getting closer to it than you would if you didn't have this knowledge. So it's when I tell women how much they need to eat postpartum, you can laugh in my face. I get it. It's really tough to do it consistently. But when a mama is well nourished, it shows up. It makes such a difference. And if you're in the thick of it, and Ruth, you soon will be, leaning on your support, having prepped meals, and I can imagine you would be someone that would, your freezer would be well stocked, having strategies to recognize, okay, I need to eat about every 2 hours. It should have some kind of carbohydrate, the higher quality, the better, and ideally some kind of vegetables. So when I was with my last baby, she's 1 now, and I had some family around and they'd come and they'd say, what can I do to help? And I said, can you just chop up some vegetables for me? Like, can you just, every time you come, just drop off carrot sticks or cucumber? And so I'd get bags and bags of these vegetables that then I could just go into the fridge and snack on. And for example, that really helped me because it delivered the fiber, the vitamins and the minerals that my brain needed to function and for me to sleep well and to recover well and wounds to heal up and all of that jazz. So it was really beneficial. And I think if you as a new mama recognize that postpartum period also is not just the 4th trimester, not just those first 12 weeks, but you can be recovering for 2 years. So to that point, Ruth, if you don't mind, may I jump onto the weight question? There's another thought that I've had around the emphasis on women losing weight. And I see a lot of clients wanting to do that ASAP, and I get it. Your body's changed and it never looks the same again. Except just to that piece, if we're trying to lose weight quickly, it's going to come back and bite us in the butt.
So in the postpartum time, it's not time to lose weight. It's not time to focus on kind of how our body is looking. It's a time to focus on how we're fueling our bodies, so that we're fueling ourselves and fueling our baby. And I think one key thing that I found in postpartum is that I love gardening. I grow a lot of my own veggies. And I just kind of had this hang up with frozen veggies. I didn't want to have frozen veggies. They had to be fresh. Frozen veggies are great. They're picked at the peak time. They're frozen well. They're so easy to get out of the freezer and add to meals, either part of it or on the side. So if you're trying to up your veggie intake, frozen veggies are a great option. You don't have to have fresh veggies all the time. Fresh veggies, I'm a big fan of, but frozen will do the job just as well.
Always. And they're so affordable. And, when we think about the cost of food and we think about wastage, it's another great option. Yeah, my freezer is always stocked full of frozen veg because some days I can't be bothered. And so that's great. Thinking again to any mama who might be listening thinking, but my body, your weight is always a symptom of what you do. It's not the focus itself. If you've just grown a baby, and we could have a whole conversation around how much weight you should gain in pregnancy, etc. You maybe want to see me for that. And then if you're focusing on your weight postpartum, but you're eating crap, you're just filling yourself with lactation cookies and, I don't know, just throwing that out there. Then of course your weight isn't going to respond versus if you're fueling it with high quality grains, lots and lots of vegetables, your weight will respond. In the right time, we can't control it because it is a byproduct. It's a symptom. It's not the focus. And so if we focus on what we can control, the weight itself will sort out in time.
Are you saying that we can't have that Tim Tam in the middle of the night?
I saw that from your last episode. Listen, if the dietitian had on, eating at nighttime is probably the worst thing that you can do for yourself. And it tells me that you haven't fueled enough during the day.
I'll keep that in mind.
But in saying that, with my, mum hat on, by all means, do what you want. But then it also expects that you might, if you're struggling with the low energy levels, the low focus, there could be something a bit off there that would be valuable to look at too.
Good to have that knowledge to know that actually if you are fueling yourself well during the day, at nighttime, even if you're up for hours, you should be okay. So again, keep that in mind this time. So do you have any more tips and tricks you want to share with us?
Oh, yes. And final one, I think, is really if you're in between babies and you're thinking, tossing up, do I have another one? There's the, can I afford one? Do I have the patience for another one? Like all those questions. But from a nutritional perspective, again, let's not discount, I'm a broken record. Yes, I know. But the things to prepare for another baby, there's an interpartum period between children that can be utilized and really harnessed to help you go into your next pregnancy better. Now, this is particularly important for women with hyperemesis or those who had unrelenting nausea or sickness during pregnancy. This is also if you had any sort of other nasty issues. So you might have had gestational diabetes, you might have preeclampsia, HELLP syndrome, anything like that. All of these, you might be going into it a bit apprehensive about what the experience would be like this next time, but there's so much you can do in that interpartum period to prepare your body so that you don't have to do it. You can reduce your risk substantially so that's not your experience the next time. So that's hopeful. And then just another piece of like returning to fertility. If you are thinking of having children close-ish together, every woman's cycle is different and there's a pattern to it. And in between children, you're trying not to get pregnant, and then all of a sudden you want to get pregnant. So talking around knowing your cycle and talking about oral contraceptives can be quite a valuable conversation to have, especially if you are in a bit of a tight time frame, like you're getting, the years are ticking by and you do want to complete your family before time's up. So I would say to a woman who is wanting to conceive that I would suggest, and this is I practice this and I recommend this for my clients, is knowing your cycle inside and out using a natural fertility method. And there's lots of different ones out there. And some are robust and highly validated, and some are a bit more sketchy and less reliable. I personally am a huge fan of the Billings ovulation method, and it doesn't require any touching, any, dare I say the words on podcast, like those less desirable discharge mucus, etc. You don't have to take your temperature. Okay. So you're simply looking at sensation. What do I feel at different stages of my cycle? And it has been, and I've looked into multiple different methods, and this, I have been blown away by the robustness of the research and how it works with a woman's hormones. So I can look at a Billings chart now and tell a client exactly what her hormones are doing, exactly how strong her ovulation was, diagnose and see if there's anything awry with the cycle that might be getting in the way. So if you're in between and trying to return to fertility after a baby, some women's periods come back soon and some don't. Mine take on average 9 months to return, but I actually know from doing my charting that I'm not fully fertile until over a year later. So that's, a year since birth, even though I've been having bleeding. So it's been really helpful for me in the return to fertility, unlike some methods that you can't, like if you're taking your temperature, you can't because you're not ovulating. So the Billings ovulation method is a fabulous way to track return to fertility and then to enhance. So when you are trying to conceive, it just makes everything a lot easier. And I would avoid oral contraceptives if you can, using one of these natural fertility methods as much as possible. And if anyone wants more information on that, I can share it with Ruth, including the show notes, just so that you got a bit of direction around how to do that if you're interested.
Yes, definitely. That'd be great. I'll make sure that I get them from you, Hannah, so that we can include them in the show notes. But if anyone would want to talk with you more, work directly with you, or just find you online, find some more information, where would they go?
Oh, you can find me at ognutrition.co.nz. And I have on offer for everybody. It's nice to suss out someone first and figure out, are they weird? Do I like them? A free support session is available for anyone who would want something. And it's just a chance to chat. I'd love to hear your story, hear what sort of struggles you're facing, offer some free advice if that's appropriate. And then you can sort of decide where to from there. You can also find me on Instagram, ohgoodness_nutrition. And I do have a podcast. It's called I'm Thinking of Having a Baby. That you can find on Apple and Spotify.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Hannah. I know for me, there's a lot of things I am going to be thinking about in my postpartum journey. I'm not planning on having another one, so not doing the trying to conceive again, but you never know. But a lot of things for me to think about as I go into this next stage with this little one. And I know a lot of things for people to think about in general as they're listening to this. So thank you so much for sharing your knowledge. Thank you so much for sharing the ins and outs with your dietitian hat and your mum hat. And any last closing remarks from you?
Yeah, I would like to say, given the time, I suppose, and the general approach of this tool, right, the podcast, I'd love to know for you to know, rather, that there's so much you can do. And if you're feeling stuck in the weeds, if you're sort of at your wit's end, not really sure what to do, and you're a little bit fed up with the scrolling or the trying to solve things on your own, and it's becoming a bit overwhelming, there is nothing wrong with just getting some personalized support, because I think that's the biggest. You can spend a lot of time trying to solve things, and you're a really smart woman. If you're listening to this, you're really onto it. And it's not a failure on your part at all. I just think sometimes we need a little bit of leaning on our support network. So if you are thinking of a friend, if you're thinking of a fellow mum who's really having a hard time, then specifics around what you can practically do to make a difference in your very real situation. There's so much out there. And so if you need to see a professional, then do.
Yes, I am so for that. I think it's in any realm of life, in any of the walks, when you're a woman, if you've got these things going on in your life, it's so easy to try and just do it on our own or go to social media or just do the scroll. But actually, there's so many people who are actually trained legitimately with degrees behind them who can actually support you and help you in a way that is for you and your body, your stage of life and your family. So as Hannah said, do make sure you reach out to someone if you need that support. It might be one session, it might be 5, it might be more, but just getting that help, getting that support to nourish your body, to know what's happening, and to be able to have that next step. Awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah. Thank you for today. And for everyone listening, remember today is a great day to play and a great day to nourish your body in a really good way, because as Hannah was saying, we need to make sure us as mums are nourished very well so that we can mum well as well. If you've ever wished that you had a group of parents who just get it, I would like to welcome you to the Play Schemers Collective. It's where you can ask questions without judgment, share those little wins only another parent would understand, and dive deeper into your child's play with people who speak your language. Join us at playschemers.com/collective for more information. We can't wait to have you on the inside.